Mark had been waiting for a long time. Bus after bus had passed him, and not a single one had he gotten on. The wind had whispered in his ears, as if urging him to step foot on a bus, any bus, and let it take him somewhere. After all, every bus must stop somewhere, perhaps a dark cabin in the woods, or a final bus stop before returning. Cold was the night as Mark stood there, shuffling in his shoes in the snow, feeling the chill pass through his jacket, huddling in the small gaps of his body, nestling like a crooning, purring creature as it pricked his ribs with frost and frigid cold. When's the damn bus gonna get here? A deep, sharp voice rang out next to him, making him jump, and he turned to face the source of the sound. It was another man, leaning against the bus stop window and looking at Mark, expecting an answer. "No idea," Mark responded, turning back to face the grass ahead of him. "It's always late, this bloody bus. Never on time." The man spat, kicking the snow and cursing under his breath as he smacked his foot too hard. Mark winced at the sound. He wasn't accustomed to loud noises, so he took the bus often. Not that he ever got on one, he usually just waited for the right one to come along. The one that would take him home. A few minutes passed, and the snow began to fall in earnest, coating both the men's shoulders in fluffy, chilly flakes of white. The man next to him grumbled and shuffled some more until Mark looked out into the distance. He felt his whole body tense up as he saw another person stepping out into the road. The man next to him appeared to have seen nothing and was looking up and down the road for the bus he was going to catch, not noticing that the person had stepped fully into the road now. As Mark watched, a curious feeling arose inside him, and he felt a huge urge to go out into the road himself. Trying firmly to keep his feet on the ground where they were, he watched the other person's frame, obscured by the thick, falling snow as they stepped further in still, letting cars zoom by them quickly. Mark felt his breath catch in his throat as he saw the person cross over to the middle of the road, and they just stood there, their arms hanging down by their sides. They watched vehicles race past them, some people looking out in astonishment as they stood there quietly. Then, all of a sudden, a laugh pealed out loud. A harsh, scraping sound as though it had never been uttered from the mouths of people before. The very sound was equal to scraping nails on a board, the same squeaky, scratchy sound that pierced others' ears. Mark suddenly gave a shout as he saw that a car was coming at high speed from the other end of the road, and he began to leap forward to push the other person out of the way, but was shoved back by the man at the bus stop. He grunted and fell back, hitting his head on the seat as he looked up, seeing the man's face clearly for the first time, and only saw a skeletal hand emerge from a heavy, black cloak that wasn't there before. It beckoned to Mark slowly, a chilling grin forming on the man's face as Mark frantically shook his head, shuffling backward. The man bent down and whispered, "No matter, you'll be joining us soon." With that, he spun on his heel and disappeared into the snowy mist, his back receding until it became a faint outline, and then gone, never to be seen again, at least not by those who would eventually. Mark stumbled up and watched as he realized he had been too late. The car had swerved, but it had hit another vehicle and went careering into the person in the road, who had just laughed like a maniac as it happened. Blood coated the tarmac in spatters, its thick, coppery smell permeating the air along with the panicked shouts of people as they rushed to the scene, lifting phones to their ears and moving others back from the area. The whole road stopped in shock, and people leapt out from cars and hopped off bikes, bending down to see the carnage. Mark, in a sort of trance, moved forward, his feet dragging themselves forward of their own accord as he got closer and closer to the body on the concrete. People didn't see him move. In fact, they didn't even turn to him, as though he wasn't even there. Mark bent down and looked at the body, their neck twisted away, and as he turned it to see the face, he felt all the wind being sucked out of him as he gasped, his vision blurring and his head going dizzy. As the face finally became clear to him, so did his fate. It was him. Lily Jones stayed up in bed, pulling the covers to her chin in utter fear. Her heart thumped 10 times the normal, and she edged closer to the middle of the bed as she kept an eye on the gap beneath her door. Tears leaked down her eyes as she spotted the alarm clock. 12:01. It was extremely late at night, and she had officially gone to bed 4 hours ago. Her parents were asleep in the other room, and her brother was downstairs on the sofa. She was far too scared to make her way across the house by herself. Her eyes, wide and horrified, scanned the room in a dizzy haze, willing herself to stay awake, because if she slept, he would get her. The man in her house, the man in her basement. Several hours later, sunlight poured in through the windows in her room and drifted lines of warmth across Lily's face as she awoke, blinking in the early morning light. She sat up, yawning as she stretched and reveled in the sun's touch, enjoying the streaks of yellow it painted onto her duvet. Before she got out of bed, however, she suddenly sat back down with a thump, remembering the nightmare experience from last night, which had made her certain that she would never sleep again. But here she was, alive and well, despite her misgivings about the whole situation. Lily simply shook her head and decided to put her irrational fears out of her head. It was simply an old house. It was bound to make strange noises. "Get up, or else I'm taking your bacon." The voice of Adam, her brother, bellowed like a foghorn through her new bedroom door, and she rolled her eyes, choosing to sit in bed for a little longer and stay in the warm. They had recently moved into the house, and although Adam and her parents had both settled in rather well, Lily's predicament was far more tangled. It wasn't the fact that the house was old and could possibly crumble down at any given moment, but it was more the fact that she had been seeing this creepy figure following her family members around in the most chilling manner, always looking out from the basement. Lily was more than certain that the figure was a man, and he always came out at night, which was what had been keeping her awake for so long, unable to sleep and in a constant, paralyzing fear that the man would come to get her. Lily got up and headed for the bathroom, intending to brush her teeth fast, and she avoided looking directly over the balcony as she walked down the little hallway to the bathroom, as it made her feel dizzy. Her mother had set breakfast out on the table, and despite Adam's threat, her bacon was still on her plate, and she polished it off fairly fast, but she couldn't properly focus on her food, as the basement door loomed at her from the corner of her eye, the handle looking menacing itself. Having eaten, she made her way outside, sitting on the front porch and simply looking around. She spent most of the day like that, sitting on the porch, doing her homework, anything to pass the time. That evening, they had their dinner, and Lily and Adam sat on the couch, watching the TV for a while, before Adam sloped up to bed, and Lily was left on her own, watching some TV show, where there wasn't much noise from the device. Soon, she heard a door creak open from somewhere in the house. Her heart instantly dropped, and her palms began to sweat. Picking up the remote, she went back a few minutes, trying to check whether the sound came from the television. But no similar sound repeated itself. Lily edged towards the end of the sofa, keeping her eyes fixed on the open doorway near the kitchen entrance. Very slowly, agonizingly slow minutes later, Lily heard a footstep echo from the empty kitchen. It came from the basement, and she knew it. The footsteps got closer and closer, and before she knew it, Lily's eyes went dark, and she saw no more, screaming at the same time as the woman on the TV. Many months later. It wasn't until months later that another family bought that house after the Joneses moved out. They had suffered a lot since what they had assumed to be the death of their only daughter. The funeral had been long, and although the vicar had done justice to the young girl, her mysterious disappearance was never discovered. The new family never saw anything odd, but their young son always said, before they too moved out, that he could see two people from the basement at night. One was a man, and the other was a young girl. There was a knock at the door, and Ace heard it, so she went to see who it was. But when she opened the door, there was no one there, just a big box with a note. Ace took it inside and put it on the counter, thinking nothing of it or the note. She just went to get something to open the box so she could see what was inside. However, when she left the room with the box, she heard a loud noise that sounded like something falling. She went to check if anything was broken, but nothing had fallen. Nothing was out of place. She then looked at the box, which was now open. Ace walked over to the box and saw that it looked empty inside, but she couldn't see the bottom, which freaked her out a little and made her feel uneasy. She then noticed the note and looked at it, but all it said was, "Don't look away." It didn't explain why or what was going on. As she was looking at the note, she heard something from the box, which made her look up from the note. When she did, she saw a face looking back at her. She couldn't believe it as she started to feel scared and even more uneasy, realizing that he wasn't just looking at her, but that his eyes were following her. Ace was freaked out, but kept her eyes on the box as she grabbed her phone, which was next to it, and called her friend Aaron to see if he could help. Hey Aaron, she said with an uneasy voice as he answered. Hey, is everything all right? He asked in a concerned voice. And no, I got a weird package, she said, making sure to keep her eyes on the man looking at her from inside the box. Aaron then asked, What do you mean by a weird package? She then said, There's a man looking at me from the box. The package was him, she said in an uneasy and uncomfortable voice. Aaron then said, I'm on my way. Don't take your eyes off of him, he said in a worried voice as he grabbed his keys and went to his car. She then said, Okay, I wasn't planning to anyway, so get here fast, she said as she hung up the phone and placed it down. But as she did, she looked away for a minute, and when she looked back at the man in the box, he was no longer just looking at her, but was out of the box more now and was pointing at her. She knew she had to keep looking at him, but she felt so uneasy that she couldn't. She looked away for just a minute, trying to calm down, but quickly looked back up when she heard the box fall. He was now out of the box completely, just standing in front of her, looking at her with a creepy smile on his face. She then heard someone at the door, making her turn away from the man and look at the door, but when she did, she felt someone's hand go over her mouth. The door then opened. It was Aaron, and he had brought someone with him, Jason. Aaron, there's the box, but no one's in it, Jason said, looking at Aaron, concerned. Aaron looked around and saw that not only was the box empty, but Ace wasn't anywhere in the living room. Aaron then started to feel uneasy and began to search the house for Ace. Do you see Ace anywhere? She was meant to keep her eyes on the box, but it's in the living room empty, Aaron said, looking at Jason worried. Jason then looked around with Aaron until he noticed the basement door was open. He then looked at Aaron and said, I think they're down there, pointing at the basement door. Aaron looked at the door and said, Come on then, let's see, as he started down into the basement, with Jason following. But when they got to the basement, they saw something that made them freeze in fear. They couldn't do anything but stand there and watch as they saw the man from the box writing "Too late" on the wall with the blood of their friend Ace, who was lying on the ground, so messed up that Aaron and Jason could barely recognize her. Hey, Ashley, I heard my little sister yell from downstairs. What? I replied in an annoyed tone as my sister Lizzie opened my bedroom door, yelling, Mom and Dad left, so now you have to watch us. I rolled my eyes as I heard this. Okay, I said, then spent the whole day watching after my little sister, waiting for our parents to get home. Ash, Lizzie said, looking at me with sleepy eyes. Yes, Liz, I replied in a soft voice. Where are Mom and Dad? She asked. I had no idea, but I couldn't tell my 6-year-old sister that. I just said, I don't know, but don't worry, I'm sure they'll be home soon. As I said that, I noticed the time. It was 12 o'clock at night, and Lizzie was beyond tired. I picked her up and said, Let's get you to bed. I'm sure they'll be home when you wake up. I walked up the stairs and put her to bed in her bedroom, then walked back downstairs and turned on the TV since I wasn't tired. I stayed up for about an hour when I started hearing tapping on the window next to me. I thought it might have been an animal or something like that, so I opened the blinds a little, but when I did, I saw a woman looking at me with a creepy smile. I shut the blinds as fast as I could, then got up and made sure that all the doors and windows were locked. I then heard my little sister crying from upstairs, so I ran upstairs to see if she was okay. When I got there and asked what was wrong, all she said was, There's a lady trying to get in through the window. I went to the window and looked down, and when I did, I saw the lady that was downstairs, but now she was on our roof, trying to find a way in. Feeling scared and not really knowing what to do, I grabbed my phone and called the cops, but for some reason, I couldn't reach them. I tried calling our parents again and again, but the call wouldn't go through. So, I grabbed my sister and held her close to me. Then I saw the lady back at my sister's window, but this time she was holding something. I couldn't tell what it was, but she started hitting the window with it as hard as she could, like she was trying to break the window. Out of fear and worry that she might hurt me or my sister, I grabbed Lizzie and ran downstairs, debating whether I should go outside or find a place to hide. Then, I heard the window in my sister's bedroom break. I opened the front door, attempting to run out of the house, but before I could, The lady from the window was waiting for us outside.